to Behind the Tweet podcast. I'm your host, Christine Parks, Chief Communications Officer for Temple ISD. Welcome to episode 1 of Behind the Tweet podcast, which is a production of Temple ISD. I'm your host, Christine Parks, and today I'm joined by Superintendent Dr. Bobby Ott. And behind the scenes on Behind the Tweet, you will always find John Walleen and Eric Larson, who keep all things going in our communications department. So first off, Dr. Ott, what do you think about the district branching out into podcasting?
I think the district really works hard to find as many venues as possible to communicate, and podcasting has become quite a trend lately. It cuts across all age groups. You see middle-aged folks in the gym, listening to podcasts. You see, people of all ages, young and old, middle-aged, etc. And so it's just another way to try to reach our audience and tell our story.
Absolutely. And if you want to know more about Behind the Tweet and how it was born, see our intro episode that kind of gives more about how we came up with that idea. But again, really the basis of what we do here will be kind of telling the rest of the story behind the tweet or behind the social media post, where just the post itself we didn't feel like could do it justice because, nothing can kind of replace that conversation and sharing of those things. So to start off with you, Dr. Ott, not all superintendents have their own Twitter account. So why did you start yours, and why do you feel like it's important?
I feel like it's important because it gives voice to the position. I think a lot of times people want to know how the leader of an organization is feeling and what their thoughts are behind certain things that take place. And so my Twitter account is one way to do that in the event they can't see me in person or I don't have a chance to see everybody at that particular moment. I'm able to touch many more people at an instant through my Twitter account.
Sure. And I think it is important to note that the communications department takes no credit for Dr. Ott's Twitter. He does that all on his own, and vice versa, we take no blame. So Dr. Ott does run his own Twitter account, and all of the posts that you see truly are authentic from him and telling our district story. So I thought long and hard about what tweet of yours to use for this very first episode. And as I was going back and looking, one that just continued to stick out to me was a post you made this year on August 29th. And I'm titling it "The World from My Eyes." It got a ton of impressions, over 5,000. And the tweet itself, I wish people could see, but it's a picture of some empty desk in a classroom. And the tweet said, last week I heard a student say, try looking at the world from my eyes. So today I sat in an empty desk in an empty classroom for about 15 minutes, looking around and imagining. It was worth every minute. So that was your tweet. Do you remember even where you were, what campus you were on when that student said that?
I was at the high school.
And what was your very first thought when you heard him or her say that?
Well, I thought it was interesting because a lot of times when administrators go into classrooms, we're thinking about what is delivered to the student and not so much what the student's receiving. And so I think there are two different perspectives, and I think sometimes it gets lost. So as soon as there was an empty classroom, maybe a teacher was on PLC or visiting with their lead teachers, I had a chance to go in and sit down and just look and pretend, hey, if I was a student and I was sitting right here in this spot, what would this classroom look like to me? How would I describe this learning environment?
Describe kind of what you saw when you sat down. And actually, for the record, it's more fun to imagine you at an elementary room sitting at a little person desk. But I guess the fact that it was at the high school, that image is a little bit different. But describe what you saw when you sat down.
It's been several months, but what I do remember is I saw a board that had objectives on it. I saw kind of the traditional things that you would expect to see in a classroom. I think what I did from that point was try to take it to a different angle and think to myself, well, what if I was this type of student? What if I was a student that had this sort of background, or if I was a student that was struggling in this content area, or if I was a student that didn't have very many friends in this particular class, or if I was a student that had a late night because I had an extracurricular contest. And I remember those were the things that were going through my mind. And I think for me, I was trying to figure out, does this learning environment, does it embrace me as a student? Would it make me feel comfortable, and would it put me in a position where I would be ready to learn no matter what my circumstances were?
That's fantastic, and it actually leads into my next question, which, as I was thinking about this, is what is it that you hope that every child who sits in a desk in one of our classrooms sees?
I want them to feel like that they are in a place where they can learn. They may not always be interested in the particular content area or the particular skill that's being taught, but as long as they're in a place where they have the opportunity to learn and they feel like they have the opportunity to learn, I think that is about as provisioned as we can get, at least from a classroom point of view. I was looking for resources too. If I did not have certain supplies, would I have an opportunity to get those here? Do I have a place for technology here? Is there a place for me to move around and talk with my classmates? And so those were just the different things I was looking at when I was looking around the classroom.
Sure. And so when you were sitting there and you were looking around, did it bring back any memories from when you were in high school?
Maybe not when I was in high school, but I have not thought about myself as a student in a long time. So when I sat and went through that exercise, it was just a good reminder on how education has changed quite a bit. I remember that I was in classrooms that didn't have the type of resources that we have now, or didn't have the technology that we have now. So when I was looking around, I was thinking through that, just how education has changed and how classrooms have changed and learning environments have changed.
Next, I want to tie what we've been talking about to another tweet, and this tweet was actually from back in September of 2021, and it got over 15,000 impressions, but I think it ties real closely to what you were talking about in this present tweet, and it says a great message. Every student you encounter is a divine appointment. Spend less time molding them and more time unfolding them to be the very best version of themselves. And you have several, a collage of pictures of our students that you were highlighting. But I think that really ties back to when you talked about the instruction and what you wanted and hoped for our classrooms and what you feel like you want our teachers to inspire in our students. Do you remember where you heard or read that quote?
I don't remember exactly. It could have been a late night browsing through quotes or books, but I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, and when you say, it says to be the best version of themselves. And when I hear that, I think about really maximizing potential for all, and which is kind of core to Temple ISD and even our vision and our mission. That is something that we all aspire to and want to do in our district. But with our very diverse population, how is it that we are able to really reach all students? What do you think the difference in Temple ISD is?
Well, I think we have a variety of programs, number one. I think you can walk through our schools, and if you don't find something you're interested in, I would be very surprised. We work hard on making sure we have a large menu of options for students, not just courses, but different ways we teach. I think blended learning is another piece that we have hung our hat on. It's a way to provide instruction that allows students to pick their pathway. If you're not completely interested in something, for example, mold conversions in chemistry, that didn't light my fire in high school, but if I had an opportunity to pick the way that I learned how to understand that particular skill, I would probably be more engaged and interested. And that's something we really work hard on in Temple ISD. It's been a commitment that we have honored and worked or undertaken for probably 6 years now, 6 or 7. And it takes a lot of work from teachers to create playlists of different activities that students can pick from. And we don't just do it at the secondary level, but we do it at the elementary level as well.
Well, Dr. Ott, I truly appreciate your time today and kind of talking us through. I think it was a great first episode for us as a district to really kind of set the tone for what we hope that people get out of this podcast from the district. And again, just seeing a different side and going a little bit more in depth about our students, our staff, and the community that we serve in. So thanks so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. Please join us next time for another episode of Behind the Tweet.